Welcome to the Great Awakening Ministry. I am Minister and Yogini Joanne Lee. And on this week's show, back again, is Carole Obley. Carole is an author of Embracing the Ties That Bind, I'm Still With You, Soul-to-Soul Connections, and Wisdom from the Spiritual World. She has communicated with souls who have crossed into the spirit world through thousands of private and group sessions. She has earned a reputation in her geographical area as the real deal amongst psychic mediums. She travels nationally to speak and teach workshops, as well as maintaining a practice in mediumship based in Pittsburgh, PA. Her new book, The Art of Sensing, explains how the global transformation that humanity is now traversing relates to the journey of the individual soul. This profound yet accessible guide instructs readers to navigate uncertain times and circumstances by trusting in one's sixth sense. In this show, Carole and I discuss what are the Akashic Records, what is the value of investigating your records, how can this help with healing problem patterns in your life like challenges and phobias, and how does this knowledge lead to spiritual evolution.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
All right. So, Carole, welcome back again to the Great Awakening Show.
Wonderful to be here. Always a good experience.
Of course, we have to. I love your deep divine wisdom and your spiritual insights into, the spiritual world. It's just so wonderful. And with that, we're going to talk about what are the Akashic Records, because it's a real buzzword, but not many people understand about the whole thing. So, Carole, please explain what the Akashic Records are.
The Akashic Records, also, I generally refer to them as the Akashic Files. It really means the same thing. In the books that I've written, Wisdom from the Spirit World, and my latest book, The Art of Sensing, I refer to them as the Akashic Files. What they are is not something physical that you can hold in your hand. They are energy. They are energetic. I don't know what else to say other than records, recordings, files that the soul itself has produced by its consciousness. Mm. So therefore, and that's, by the way, both on the physical plane, but also on the spiritual plane too, in the spirit world. So if you think of, just to put it very simply, if you think of a giant tape recorder, that's what the files are. They're continuously running. Again, I mean, this is nothing physical, but they are always making sort of this imprint that becomes part of the soul's consciousness. And that includes this thing called karma, which simply means memory. That's what karma means in its simplest form. You can also say cause and effect. But it's both of those, it's all of that. And we create our files through our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions.
And our words, yeah. So they're like a book of our life, and everything we think, feel, speak, and do is recorded down. And this is from past lives as well as this life?
Yes, from the beginning of time. Now, we don't know when that was. So, uh, that who knows when that was. But the consciousness of the soul, which is unified or one with the creator, whatever you want to call that. Some people call it, a lot of people call it God. I call that spirit. The divine. There are many words to refer to the creator of all life. So whenever our individual soul was created, that's when our files really started. And for each person, their file is going to be very different because each soul is a unique extension of the creator.
Mm.
So your file is going to look very different than mine.
Mm.
And anyone out there, we are always adding to it. We can't really stop that because it's sort of like trying to stop gravity,
Mm.
which is a physical law. The natural laws, of which karma is one, can never be subverted. And in the art of sensing, I wrote a whole chapter on the natural laws.
Mm.
A lot of people don't know what those are. A lot of people, however, most people understand what karma is.
Mm.
In a simplest form, what goes around comes around. We've all heard that. So the records
Yeah.
are always imprinting based on the frequency of the records are created through your consciousness.
Mhm. Just absolutely fascinating. And so they must, and they hold it all, which therefore comes back to us. It's like comes back to us as our karma that we have to fulfill and live out. Isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, and see, this is the PowerPoint. This is the knowledge of this, knowing that there exists this, this greater consciousness. We can change that. That's the really empowering
Mm.
part of all of this. Is there fate? In my 30 years of being, a spiritual medium, I have not seen evidence of that we're fated.
Mm.
Wow. The difference between being fated and there are certain things that we've set up, again, from the Akashic files that we create before we come here into physical form. So while we're still in the spirit world, we are adding to our file through the plans or the intentions. Intentions is probably a better
Mm.
choice of word of what lessons or circumstances that we're going to be meeting when we come into physical form.
Yes.
That is also part of these energetic files.
Mm. Wow.
It's not that the files are not bad.
Yes.
It's sort of like, you
They're
leave them,
impartial. They're impartial. They just record. And it's
they
up
are
to us.
impartial.
It's up to us with our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, because we don't have to be victims of our circumstances, or the mercy of circumstances, because we can control it and be the creator of it by changing our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions and making them more sacred, so that we don't cause any harm to another being, and then therefore don't cause harm to ourselves, you know.
Exactly. I believe if this information was taught in, worldwide, from the beginning of when we're children,
Yes.
that I think we would see a different world.
Definitely.
Knowing this simple truth, we are responsible for what we create.
That's right.
So if you and I know that, and I don't mean just know it intellectually, but know it within the fiber of our being or in our hearts, then we would know that if we create pain and suffering and bad things for other people or for animals or for the planet, that we are the ones who are going to have to cope with that and to meet it.
Yes. Because
That doesn't
yeah,
just evaporate.
yes, it has to. That's what Jesus says. Whatever you give out, shall you shall receive. And that's why we are here to be the master of our emotions, of our anger, of our victimhood. Be the master of that, of our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. So that we can create a good life, and help others and be of service to humanity. It's so important to have that control over oneself.
Yes, and I think that people somehow have a misconception that control, certainly not all people, but the control lies outside of themselves.
That's right.
Well, sort of like, well, God,
Yeah. My
produced this
husband, my husband did this to me.
or made this or whatever. Other people, I'm not in any way saying that other people don't do things to us or say things to us or make life difficult for us, but we always have the control of our reaction to it. So the Akashic, by the way, Edgar Casey, the famous American psychic who did his readings during the 1920s, 1930s, he called it the Book of Life.
Yes.
Or he also called it God's Book of Remembrance.
Ah, that's beautiful. Mm.
Yeah, I know. He had quite an eloquent way of speaking. It was sort of Old English or biblical language when he did his readings. But the Akashic will reflect every single thing every choice that we've made. And this is really important because when we die, when
Yeah.
we drop the physical body, a lot of people have heard about having the life review.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what exactly are we reviewing? Well, we're reviewing the Akashic.
Yes.
And you hear about this, almost every book, and I've read many, many, many books for over the past 30 or 40 years. Um, Talk about this life review, metaphysical books, when we die. We get this, it goes by very, very quickly in
Mm.
our consciousness, maybe seconds.
Mm.
And so it shows us from this particular lifetime, if we just isolate one lifetime, from birth to death.
Mm.
And, throughout that, all of our interactions with other people, with ourself, our thoughts, our feelings, and importantly, Joanne, and this is what I find really um, astonishing, but I know it's true. We will also, upon death, experience how we made other people feel through what we did.
How much joy we brought or how much harm we did. Yes.
Exactly. And I just want to mention that in years of giving mediumship readings, I can't tell you how many times, countless times, that a spirit communicator, a soul will come through from the spirit world and say, I saw that how I harmed you. Say that it was, a father who was very disconnected from his family. He worked all the time. He was sort of a workaholic or an alcoholic, or a mother who was very abusive, let's say. we can gain full knowledge of that when we go back into the spirit world. And and this is the really, again, the astonishing part. We will feel how we made the people that we interacted with, how we made them feel.
Yes.
So we experience it vicariously through these records.
That's just so amazing. And I did an interview with a professor who's done like 500, interviewed 500 near death experience people who've been there and done it. And he said, and it's not, this really, really was just so profound for me. It's not just that one person that we harm with our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, but they, because of our harm that we gave to them, then they are going to go out and be harmful or be off, and negative to the next person. And then they might go out and be negative. And it's like a ripple effect. So you're not just, you can cause that harm will go out like a ripple effect, just maybe hundreds of people. And it becomes thousands and thousands over your lifetime. So it's so important to be responsible for what we give out energetically.
Yeah, and as you were speaking, I just had this sort of, well, clairvoyant image in my mind's eye. So if this is the person standing here, and here's the freedom of choice, and to build on what you were saying, we can make a choice that goes this way, that is the ripple effect to, I say, I don't know, a kind word to you. Let's just take something very simple. I say a kind word to you. That could change your whole day. Maybe you were feeling down. Maybe you were feeling depressed. Maybe you were feeling, well, does anybody even notice me? I say something kind to you, or reach out in compassion to you, but through some sort of an act. That ripple effect, much like throwing the stone in the water, and you see those concentric circles coming out. When I'm kind to you, that can change your whole outlook and framework. Maybe not even just on that day,
Yes.
but for that week, for that month, whatever.
And then you
Now,
will
if
go
you're,
out, that person can be kind to another person.
that's it. So it keeps going. Now
Yeah.
let's go back, person standing here. I'm going to make a choice the other direction. Um, I am going to throw, I don't know, rocks and bricks at somebody or whatever, or, be very mean to them or say something very demeaning to them. That is also that ripple effect. So that person has a family. That person might have animals that what I did to them made them feel really crappy, and they take it out on their animals, they take it out on other people. This is the importance of choice. And this is why in the books that I've written, I talk a lot about the power of choice that we have. And I might add, the power to reinvent ourselves through minute by minute selection of our perspective.
Yes. Absolutely amazing. Really, really. And what is the value of to investigate your records? What is the value of investigating your records?
For me, working with clients, it's to show the root of where a specific behavior pattern or circumstance came from.
Yes.
Now, again, that can be good or it can be very bad. Most people when they come for readings, they're not, they're in some kind of pain, or they say, boy, this is really frustrating. I need some guidance on this. And so the value of really looking into the records is not for entertainment purposes. Most of us were not Cleopatra or, King Lear or whoever. We were just regular people, a lot of us just peasants. Um, but there were certain behaviors and thoughts and circumstances that each of us have experienced here on this thing called physical life. So the value of it is to, when you bring it to the conscious mind. Now, I do want to add that the Akashic files they're stored in our subconscious. So what does that mean? Well, generally, we don't have awareness of the subconscious unless we do something like a past life regression. Sometimes, of course, when we're sleeping and we're dreaming, that's coming from our subconscious. And there's some very strange dreams that we can have, but it's the subconscious which often speaks to us symbolically. So really, it's also valuable to study your dreams or to note the symbols that come up in your dreams. And those can be also related to the Akashic files.
Mm, mm,
So once we can understand the root of where something came from, and there's some kind of, I've noticed some kind of recognition that comes from the recipient of that they go, I've always felt that way. Or since I was a child, I struggled with this or that or whatever it was. I never felt like I belonged, for example. And then, I do these things called Akashic record reading or Akashic karmic astrology readings. And you can go into that if you're really aware, using your intuitive ability to see the root of where a particular thought pattern started.
wow.
And these are, I mean, everything that drives us was first a thought.
Yes.
Now, again, thoughts are what? Well, they're very neutral until there's some kind of desire or intent put
Mm,
behind them.
yes. And of course, you can go back um, into past lives in the Akashic. Yeah. Maybe there's something in there, you know, there's a reason for why you're feeling or what for what's happened in this life. Because the last life was so prominent, and there's always a reason, there's always a connection, why things happen, isn't there? So that's just fascinating.
You see, what we have to understand is that the soul is eternal.
Yes.
Now, that may sound very, well, of course, yeah, we know. But I don't know that a lot of people really understand that it's, there's really no interruption in the consciousness of the soul. Of course, we have this construct of linear time here in the physical realm that, life starts at birth. Here's this little infant, and then life ends at death. So that's only the very, very minute portion of the soul's consciousness. It's sort of like, the soul is never sleeping. It's always conscious. And so that's why in the Akashic, every single thing is recorded, no matter how minute. You and I sitting here doing this interview, this is going to be in our Akashic file.
Unbelievable.
And anything that we do. The value, again, is to isolate. And I always say to people, you must be specific when you're scheduling a reading with me, or, not just with me, or to delve into this on your own, to be very specific about what you're seeking.
Yes.
What pattern? Be as specific as you can because the Akashic is huge.
Mm.
I mean, if you can imagine, I mean, since the beginning of time, you're adding to this file is just enormous.
Yes.
So the more specific that we are as far as isolating that, the more we're going to get a specific response from our consciousness.
Wow.
And then once we have that knowledge, let's follow this through. What's the value of the knowledge? Well, there's something about bringing that into our conscious mind that will sort of automatically begin to heal it. And awareness is healing.
Yes.
Any problem, if we think of any problem, for example, I'm a graduate of 12 step, so I drank very, very heavily, and I'm very open about it. I mean, it's part of my story, it's who I am. That was many years ago. Um, until I had awareness that, hey, I have a problem here. And a lot of times with addiction, it tells you, oh, you don't have a problem. You can stop anytime you want or whatever. The first step in healing anything is awareness. So I had to become aware, wow, this isn't working in my life. Relationships are falling apart. Work is falling apart. This stuff can all come flooding in that, yeah, something's at the root of this.
Mm.
So, but we first have to become aware.
Yes.
So that's the value, that's the real value of studying your own Akashic file, is to become aware.
Mm.
You are this eternal, limitless soul who is on this journey.
Yeah.
And what's the journey? The journey is ultimately to become united with the Creator again.
That's right. To evolve, heighten our vibration, and to have our soul consciousness become one with God, goddess consciousness, whatever you want to say. But that is it. That is it. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And so this knowledge, this awareness, you're saying leads to spiritual evolution. The oneness
Yeah,
of God. That's what you were saying.
that's the bottom line. You can take a gazillion things and put them all over the page, draw a big line. What's on the bottom? What's the sum? What's the total evolution of the soul? And to release, how do we evolve? Well, number one, stop creating karma, particularly negative karma, and service work.
Yes. That is so important. I believe, service work raises your energy, raises your kundalini, and, it helps the enlightening path that we're on. And, spiritual evolution, you can, having that oneness, we don't have to wait till we die, till we pass over to have that oneness. We can do that while we are living. We can strive for that. And then, do you think that the soul, once it gets to that stage, which is a very enlightened stage of the masters and the higher ones that have been evolved, sometimes they don't have to come back down here. You can choose.
Exactly. Now, when I kind of chuckle when I hear people say, well, this is my last lifetime,
Yeah,
next
right. No, you have to go through a lot to get there.
and I usually think, are you an ascended master?
Yeah, that's right.
Because if you are not an ascended master, chances are you'll be back. And so why? Why do we come back here? Because the physical plane affords opportunity to evolve
Yes.
in through physicality, through the material realm. That
Yes.
does not exist in the spirit world. There's still evolution that is taking place when we don't have the body, of course.
Mm.
But I should say and, because they don't contradict one another, but and when you come here, there's a different set of opportunities for you to, I mean, you have a body, you have a physical brain, that things are moving much more slowly than in the spirit world. There's duality. So the great paradox is we recognize our ultimate goal is to recognize ourselves as unified through duality.
Yes. So
So
that
that's the
we're
great
not in that
paradox.
separation. Yeah, we're not in that separation anymore, are we? We're because we come from the oneness, from the spiritual world, heaven, whatever you wish to call it, the higher realms of the astral and all of the different higher realms, cosmic, and then we come down, and that's when we are separated from the oneness. That soul separation, and we're always trying to find that wholeness, that oneness. We come down here, it's left versus right, good versus evil, women are masculine and are feminine. So, to have that wholeness and that oneness is enlightenment, I believe. Yeah. Because then your soul is, having that beautiful merging in the presence with God.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, I know in my life, throughout life, I've felt this sort of undefinable um, longing
Yes.
or loneliness. And I recognize now, and some other people, some listeners may identify with that there's something you can't really even put your finger on it or identify it or put words to it, but that longing for that, like being held in, by a mother or when we're in the womb or whatever. But it's not our physical mother, as wonderful as she may be. It's our mother, father
Yes.
of God, and that we miss that. This is the three-dimensional world is a very harsh place to be, particularly for those of us who are highly sensitive. Um, but the value and to look at your Akashic to see
Yes.
what has my journey been like through this harsh realm? What have I experienced here? Because the soul can flip-flop and experience many different angles of a particular quality. So if you look at your record and you go, that's interesting, because sometimes we'll become aware of more than one lifetime spent on developing one quality. The soul could spend 10, 20, 30 lifetimes on developing one quality. For example, patience,
Mm.
compassion, unconditional love.
Yes.
There might be multiple lifetimes, and these are all stored in the Akashic.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like a thread. You can see this theme or this thread that goes throughout
Mm-hmm.
the Akashic.
Mm.
And it's it's actually exhilarating, I think, when you get this knowledge, and you can actually see too that you have made progress.
Mm.
Because how many times do we get discouraged and say, I feel like I've been working on this one quality forever.
Mm.
And we're just talking about the one lifetime.
Yeah.
And then we delve into the Akashic and we go, oh, I guess there's been about, 5 or 6 or 7 lifetimes trying to learn,
That,
compassion or, forgiveness. That's a big one.
yeah, I know.
Forgiveness is a big one.
Yeah. But can I ask you about the I mean, it's just so vast, isn't it? The Akashic. It's just so vast. And how can, I mean, in the next, we're going to do a follow up to this video, aren't we? And we're going to then, it's going to be how to access your Akashic records. Yeah. And you're going to take us through a beautiful meditation, and, you know, to get us into that place, to be able to receive that information, which is just so profound. But, you know, it's just so fascinating to me that we keep coming back again and again to fulfill our karma, to fulfill but also, what about our divine mission? What about our soul purpose? You know, accessing the Akashic can really give us so much insight into what is all of my lives, because I believe that we don't just have one, you know, maybe we couldn't do it in our past lives, but every single one of them lives was leading you, learning you, preparing you for your divine mission, which could be in this life, that you could never complete in other lives, you know, or your sole purpose, but you couldn't do it because there was too many obstacles, your situation, you know. But we've always been being prepared for this, for our one thing that we're going to do. That's why, you know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Because again, we're looking at progression. And because the soul never sleeps, so to speak, and is eternal and never dies, there is an automatic or, just an organic progression. Now, this needs to be said too. Can there be stagnancy? Yes. There can be, if we keep making choices. Remember, this is in our hands. We
Mm,
can choose this or we can choose that. So, um, if we keep making choices that are not in alignment with the evolutionary intent of the soul, and I might add, not in alignment with natural law.
yes,
Um, for example, I just can't get it that what I do to you, I'm doing to myself. I'm very mean, I'm rotten, I murder somebody, whatever. That I have to own that. So let's say that we don't get that, we don't understand that lesson. So we can actually create, I mean, it's sort of like you're just adding more and more time to, and complexity
yes,
to growth. And the really liberating part of this is that you get to choose. You get to choose if do I want to be on the accelerated pathway or do I want to be lagging back here?
that's right. And do you believe that, you know, the more we can access the Akashic records, the more we are doing our inner work and our meditations and our prayers and our, you know, visualizations, we can actually fasten up that process. You know, maybe we
Yeah.
do fasten up that process, don't we?
So the accelerants, it's sort of like you have a fire and you want that fire to really burn. So, you could put an accelerant on there. It's sort of like, when we know that we're here to learn and grow and to evolve. What are the spiritual accelerants? Generosity, compassion, service, unconditional love, selflessness. And I don't mean to say at all that you shouldn't take anything for yourself. I think, there's been this pendulum that swung the other direction sometimes that, people think that they have to become selfless or, they have to deny emotions. None of that is true. You need nourishment. You have to nourish self. But the accelerants for evolution are all of those things that I named, but also, yes, making conscious contact with the higher power, whatever that might be for you, whatever form that might take in your consciousness, but recognizing that there's something higher than your rational mind and your ego and your personality. None of those things are bad. It's it's sort of like saying which is better, the color green or the color purple or whatever. Well, they're both colors, you know. So we have these things to navigate through the physical world. But to accelerate evolution, the personality really has to become a servant of the soul, not the other way around.
Yes.
And so many times we see that I mean, just look, turn on the news for 5 minutes, and you'll see how the ego, you'll see what the result of following the ego
Ego.
brings.
The ego mind. You're following the ego. You're letting that ego control you instead of you controlling it. Because the ego is a tool we can use for spiritual growth, and to function in this world with our ego personality. But yeah, many people allow that to take over them.
It is a tool. Um, you know, our personality can be used as a tool because we each, that's what makes us unique. I mean, you have a personality, everyone listening has a distinct personality. No one is you. Um, so you can use that. The soul will use it if you allow that to occur. And again, I think it's so empowering and liberating for us to know we are not at the whim of this, ruthless God that inflicts this or that. We do have the power of choice. That doesn't mean, again, I look at it at this in a very balanced way. It doesn't mean that, horrific things, we're seeing that now going on in the world, wars and violence and all of this. So that doesn't mean horrific things don't happen, but we need to look, and this is what Art of Sensing, my new book, talks about, the unifying factor between all living beings,
That's
and
right.
that is spirit. That is spirit.
That's it.
It doesn't, spirit has nothing to do with your race, your gender, your culture, your language. It's all underneath that is our consciousness.
The soul consciousness is the same soul consciousness in every living being. There is only one. That's God, Goddess. There is only one creator, but it's expressed, in many different ways, through all of us individuals. But yes, there's only one soul consciousness, and that is the God within, the Goddess within. We're all connected to that. We are all that. And when you realize that, you realize you can't harm another, because if you harm another, you'll be harming yourself.
Precisely. That's the most important, fundamental, simple lesson that I think humankind needs to understand.
Yeah.
That whatever you do to another living being, and I absolutely put animals in this
Yes.
as well. That is why I personally stopped eating any animal
Me too.
product because I don't wish to be a part of violence.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
uh, when you really get that, you will see spirit in every living thing, in a blade of grass, in a flower. And Joanne, you put it so beautifully. It's spirit taking within, if we just talk about human beings, that is spirit expressing in a multitude of ways, all each unique. It's sort of like if you have a flower garden and you have all these different, versions of living, beautiful flowers, all different colors and species, and all of the same with the animal world. Same thing. That is spirit in each one of those flowers, in each animal, in each blade of grass, each tree, each leaf.
Expressing the beauty of itself outwards.
There
That's
is
what
a ray of the
I
creator that is beauty. It's absolutely, I mean, if we watch a beautiful, sunshine in the morning, and I feel God in that. I feel spirit in that, or sunset, or look into the eyes of a baby or a child, an animal. you can see spirit in many different ways. I try to do that every day, at least once a day, to look at something or someone and go, wow, there's spirit.
That's right.
Yeah, so I believe that we will also see that in our Akashic file.
Wow.
We will see our, it'll reflect back to us sort of, the Akashic is a mirror, right? We can also
Yes.
call it a mirror and
Mm.
reflecting back to us and go, at that instant, I
Mm.
recognize spirit within an ant
Yes.
or within a fly or,
That's it.
um, but it's true.
Mm.
It's very, very true. So once we recognize that unity, I believe that, that proverbial light bulb over our head really goes on. And we see how what I give, one of my favorite spiritual texts, A Course in Miracles,
Oh,
says, everything I give is given unto myself. The ego, by contrast, says, oh, if I give $10 to Joanne, I'm $10 short now.
mm.
The soul says, if I give $10 to Joanne, I'm greatly enriched. I'm richly abundant because everything I give returns.
That's
I'll
right.
tell you, I have seen that happen in my life. I do tithing every single Sunday. I write out checks to charity.
Mm.
This isn't for my ego or
No.
anything. It's
Yeah.
because I truly believe in giving to animals and to people. I can tell you the amazing, just mind-blowing ways that has come back to me. Now, I don't expect it. It's not that I'm standing there with my hand out. That's not the point. But because of universal laws, and we see these in our own Akashic file, if we violated a law, if we were in accordance with it,
Yes.
how everything returns to us.
Wow.
It's simply amazing. That
That,
has happened to me personally.
yeah. Fascinating. And when you said the Akashic is a mirror to us, mirroring the light and dark aspects within us, bringing them to
Yes.
the surface for healing and transmutation, and it's that's incredible.
Yes, and it's also something that I really believe can be exceedingly healing
Mm.
for people to understand I have another chance.
Yes.
We all
Could all
have
begin again.
another chance each second to reinvent ourselves, to transform ourselves. And that is the great gift from the Creator,
That's
is the ability day after day after day to wake up and go, this day is different.
mhm.
Or this day I'm going to do more of the same because it was very positive.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's why it's so important in the now. There is no past or future. There's just now. And that means that the next thought or feeling or word or action we have now can change our life. We can change everything. We can let go of all the mistakes and all the things we did. Everything is renewed and all possibilities are now, to change.
That's exactly right. Because all healing is now. It's in the now moment. We were talking earlier about accelerants. What can accelerate our pathway? So understanding the Akashic, absolutely understanding the roots of something, and then our awareness helps to balance that. Another accelerant is forgiveness.
Mm.
What do I mean? Well, it's more than just going, well, you hurt me and you lied about me or you betrayed me or whatever it might be. It's more than just going, I forgive you. It's a conscious decision that that incident doesn't limit or define me.
Yes.
Now, let me put a caveat on that. I am in no way saying to ignore your pain, to ignore trauma. someone abused you, you had a bad childhood. I'm not saying that you're going to wake up one day and go, oh, I just forgive all of that. What it means is that you become aware that that was an experience that your soul had. That's number one. Number two, and this applies to the Akashic as well. What can I do with that experience? We look into the Akashic. When this experience came to me, however long ago, what choice did I make? Did I retaliate against that person? Did I do something to harm someone else or whatever? Or did I make the choice to go within myself and say, what quality is this teaching me about in myself? How can I turn it into something evolutionary instead of disempowering? So that is why I always say, and in all of my books, and particularly Wisdom from the Spirit World, I wrote a lot about forgiveness in a
Mm,
spiritual sense,
that's right. Because
a conscious decision to release the past.
that's right. And forgiving others, you know, it sets you free. It sets us free. Because otherwise we hold resentment and all of these, that manifests eventually, as harmfulness or illness in the body because you're in that resentful phase. But it sets us free, and forgiving ourselves is so important for the things we put ourselves through.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I wrote a whole section too in Wisdom from the Spirit World on self-forgiveness. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah,
Um,
I do.
so that can also be an empowering point of looking into the Akashic
Mm,
because when we see the magnitude of our soul and that we did perhaps in a previous incarnation here, we turned a bad situation around. We can do that again.
mm,
Did it then, we can do it again.
yeah.
And so our growth is progressive. It has layers
Mm,
because the important thing that most people need to know too is that the soul gathers experience and it never loses experience.
mm,
So, what I did in, say, the 1500s or something, that's still stored somewhere in my consciousness.
that's right.
And,
Fascinating.
it will always be there.
Mm, that's so fascinating. And I just wanted to ask you because um, I've studied, I did a whole course to become also, because I was really fascinated with it, future life progression. Yeah. Future life progression. So past life regression, we're going backwards, but future life progression is about, you know, going in and going into that deep beautiful place where the practitioner takes you down, and where we can actually access through the Akashic our future lives, and we can absorb, we can see ourselves maybe in that 5-year life or that 10-year life, or even in the ultimate future life that we wish to have, and we can talk to that person and we can see that person, and we can ask, what are the things I need to do in this moment now, in this particular time now of this life, to fasten, to accelerate, as you said, the process, so that I can make, instead of waiting that, years and years and years, I can actually, bring that energy into this life so that I can focus on it now, to make that future life come true now, instead of waiting years and years and years and years and years. It's an acceleration. It's amazing.
Yes, well, the future is nothing but a series of choices that in each now moment, right?
Mm,
So what I do here in this moment and in the next moment and the next moment
mm,
is builds my future.
mm,
And we can't hold the past in our hand. We can't hold the future in
mm.
our hand. What we have is now. So
Yes.
that's why I say all healing exists in the now moment.
Yes.
And yeah, we can project based on if I stay on this pathway. And I always explain to people when I'm doing readings for them, particularly life guidance readings, your future is not set in stone. It's determined by what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
what
believe.
do you want it to look like? What
Yeah.
choices are you making right now that will create that future? And that again is a very empowering, it's empowering knowledge to have that. And to know that that rests in you with you
Yeah.
to be
We
able
are,
to do that.
yeah, we're made in the image of God, Goddess, the creator, and we have been bestowed with our feelings and our thoughts and our imagination to create, our life and to help create the world timeline together. I believe that's, important as well. And, just by going into the case, you can tap into that future, and see that and bring that energy back. That's so empowering. We don't have to be a victim, do we anymore? We become a
No,
creator.
there's really no such thing as victimhood. Um, there's only experience. And
Yeah,
when you start to remove judgment, you see the ego is always judging because it good, well, that's good, no, that's bad. That's dark, that's light, that's masculine, that's feminine, or whatever. So I'm not saying those things don't exist. Certainly they do. But if you pull back from the judgment and just look at something as you can actually reframe painful things that have happened in your past, you can reframe them as that was an experience that I had. And then go the next step. What did I learn from going through that experience? How
yeah.
can I apply that?
How can I apply that for my future? In yeah.
Exactly.
Wow. It's just so fascinating. It really is. And I tell you what, honestly, Carole, I can't wait for the next one for you to help us access, the Akashic Records. It'll be absolutely incredible. And, because it's just vast and it's such a vast subject that not many people have been talking about, and we all have the ability to heal, and to be healers. We are all healers, and we can all individually access our own Akashic records, can't we?
Yeah, you really just, well, we'll get into that in
Yeah,
our
yeah, we
next.
can. Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to, you have to stop the process of judgment.
Mm,
And I'll explain that in our next in part two,
brilliant.
why that's so important.
Yes,
Because judgment will stop you in your tracks
sure,
from accessing what you need
sure.
to discover.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, it's so freeing, so liberating. And Carole, please tell us where we can read all of your incredible books and book a beautiful session with you.
My website is soulvisions.net. And yes, I have read for people from many different countries through Zoom. And then all of my books are on my website, but they're also all on Kindle. They're on Amazon.uk, Amazon in the US, and my publisher, of course, collectiveinc.com. So all of them are there. My first book, Embracing the Ties That Bind, Connecting with Spirit, is not available through Collective Inc., but it is available on Amazon, and it's sort of a metaphysical handbook.
Lovely.
So that is on Amazon as well.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Carole, you just given us your wonderful, divine, enlightening, information and wisdom about this really beautiful subject that we all can all access. So, until our next one, which won't be too long, I just say thank you, Carole, for being on the Great Awakening Show.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Lovely, absolutely lovely.